Let's see, by way of announcements. As you heard, our menu tonight is freezer clean out. So what that means is that there are a variety of items. When you go through, don't get one of everything. When you go through the first time, don't get one of everything. Just get one item. And then after everybody's had a chance to go through and get what they want, then you can go back and get more, okay? So there are like 3 different types of sandwiches, why I'm saying that. So just get one sandwich. Don't get one of each. But then after everybody goes through, you're welcome to go back and get more, okay? Good? Good. All right, thank you. Let's see. What else have we got? We got the delegate elections will be this Sunday at the end of the service. Brother Dalton will be preaching Sunday morning as well. And ladies' Bible study tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. And then our Sunday school breakfast potluck is coming up in 2 weeks. Well, actually a week and a half. And let's see, there will be a shower for Caleb Rutland and Carly on Sunday, March the 1st at 2 o'clock at Topeka Baptist. Right. If you don't know, that's Tommy Rutland's son. Also, the Zone WMS meeting is March 3rd at Monticello, and Brother Mark and Miss Joy will be telling tales from their trip to Africa. Sharing from their trip from Africa. All right. Any other announcements? Okay, prayer requests. Need to remember Miss Angie. She is not feeling well. Some of you may have known Willie Collins, who was a deputy. Willie passed away last night. So we need to be in prayer for his family. Amen. Bill Johnson family. Okay. Any others? Say that again. Cheyenne and Jacob. And what was that last name again? Okay. The who? No. So what was that name again? Close enough. The family Cody. Okay. Any others? And let's go to the Lord in prayer then. Brother Dalton, would you lead us, please?
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you now to lift up the burdens of those dearest to us, Lord, for those that were mentioned upon the prayer list, Lord, for the ones that are just not feeling well, for the ones that are having surgeries or procedures, for the ones that just need a extra little love, Lord. We pray that you will just touch hearts, Lord, that you will touch bodies and minds, Lord, that you will help each one to focus on you. Help each one of us to focus more on you and less on this world, less on our problems, but to keep our eyes fixed on you and your kingdom. Father, we do ask that you just anoint this service, Lord, that you just be with Brother Lord, and help us to give the message that you would have us give, Lord. Father, we thank you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Lee, how are you?
Hey, can I borrow those shoes? I like them.
Well, I had some friends from where I was at.
Taking chances. Uh-oh. Uh-oh is what happens when it doesn't update. Okay, we'll go with it. Ready? Define love. Valentine's. Black eyes. No, wait. That's what happens when you don't give one. Sacrifice. Okay. That's a good answer. What's that? Forgiving. Forgiveness. Okay. A choice. Relationship. Did you say something, Charles? Compassion. Okay. Well, I always like to go to Mr. Webster and see what he has. And most of them I ignored. The fourth definition that he gave is a promise to be loyal to someone or something. Oh, wait. Wait, that's what didn't come in. That was commitment. We'll come back to that one. Let's see if I can remember. I knew something didn't show up here. That's what it was. It was supposed to be that definition. So basically, it's doing good for another, and it kind of comes back to a philosophical definition of love and what love is, and that's what Webster is kind of talking about there, and it has a two directional focus, again, according to Webster. One is to God, and then the other one is to man. And but everything that you said is correct. That all comes into helping us to understand what love is. So let's define commitment then. Commitment is a promise to be loyal to someone or something. In other words, we'll do what it takes to be loyal. So when we talk about love and commitment, do those two go together? Can't have love without commitment, can you? Well, let me rephrase that. You won't have love without commitment, because it's just not going to happen. Love requires commitment, and commitment involves making sacrifices. So when you love someone and you're going to go out to eat somewhere, for example, and you really want this, but you ask them what they want, and they want that, what do you do? You go to that. You go to different places. Well, you can have what you want, but I'm going to get what I want, right? And then the fight starts, right? Actually, if that's the case, the fight already started. It's been going on. But no, seriously, we tend to give to the other person, and that's what love does, right? Now, there are times when we don't. if it's not in the best interest for the other person. So, for example, children and parents, we love our children, but when they want something that we know is not good for them, especially something that may be harmful to them, we're going to do what? We're going to say no. And that is, again, showing love. And that's one of the aspects of love that sometimes I think we miss. Because we always think of love as being the good stuff, the compassion and giving and doing all of these things for the person because you love them. Sometimes love is doing the hard thing and withholding something from them. Isn't that what God does with us? There are times that we ask God for something that we think is good for us. He knows it's not. And so he withholds it. He doesn't give it to us. What do? We're like a 2-year-old on the floor throwing a tantrum. Aren't we? I mean, come on, let's be honest. Is that not what we tend to do sometimes? Well, Lord, why didn't you give this to me? Come on, I mean, it's good for me. Isn't that what your 5-year-old did too when you said no? Or 21-year-old? No. I say that because he's sitting back there. There are times when God says no to us, and it's not to harm us, nor is it to withhold something good from us, but it is to withhold because, one, it may not be good for us. It may actually be harmful to us. 2, it may just not be the right time. So when that 15-year-old comes to you wanting the new car and you say, no, I'm not giving you a new car. But in a few years you might give them a new car. But right then it's not time. They're not ready for it. They don't know how to handle it. Sometimes we aren't ready for what we're asking, and so God says no, meaning just wait. Maybe later I'll give it to you. He doesn't tell us that. He just tells us no. And then we get that surprise gift later. When we talk about love and commitment, we're talking about relationships. And in order for a relationship to work, it requires commitment. In a husband-wife relationship, if there is no commitment, there is no relationship. Would you agree with that? Then why do we think that we can have a relationship with God without commitment? We can't. It's impossible. You aren't going to have a relationship with God unless there is commitment. And sometimes commitment requires sacrifice. Ouch. That's not a fun word. We don't like sacrifice, do we? And yet, sacrifice is at the heart of love. We're coming up, let's see, what is this? February? We are, about 6 weeks from Easter, aren't we? 46 days. 40 fasting days. It is that time, isn't it? Ash Wednesday, yeah. So, think about it. What are we celebrating at Easter? Sacrifice. We're celebrating love by way of sacrifice on Good Friday, and then the resurrection on Easter morning, but it all centers around the fact that God gave a sacrifice for us. And that sacrifice was his Son, and love was the motivation. For God so loved the world. So when we think about sacrifice, then, that's kind of hard sometimes. Let me shift gears for just a second and ask a question. What is your favorite commercial? What's your favorite TV commercial? Sir?
I haven't seen one in 50 years.
Mm-hmm. I think my last favorite was Where's the Beef, but, What is the purpose of commercials? To make you want something. That's a good way of putting it. To tempt you? To make you want something that you don't need. No, wait. The people who make all these commercials on TV want us to have it all. No, I take that back. They want us to want to have it all. I mean, think about it. It was really kind of funny when Benjamin was young. He would see some of these commercials, and he'd go running in there to Elisa. Mom, I saw just what you need. And I think we actually bought one or two of those things, and a couple of them actually did work. But they want you to want it. They give you that desire. They make it look good. For example, let's talk about Sonic burgers. You see those Sonic burgers, and even the pictures that they have there at the restaurant, right? Have you ever gotten one like that? Never. Why is that? Because it's photoshopped. It's painted. We see these pictures of these beautiful women, these handsome, good-looking men, and they make us think, man, that's what I'm supposed to be like, right? Well, get your Photoshop out and start working on it, and you can make yourself look like that, because that's the way they are. You see, it's not real. It's artificial. It's fake. But it's all done with the intention of getting you to want to be like that, or to want this so that you can look like that, or to do this so that you can get that. And it's all done with these intentions. And so what happens then is we start wanting things that we think we need that we really don't. So what does that have to do with love? What it does is it twists our understanding of what love is. And isn't that what we see in our society today? There's a distorted understanding of love, a distorted understanding even of who we are, a distorted understanding of relationships and how relationships work together. In fact, there's even a distorted understanding of whether or not you're a man or a woman. And by the way, is gender in the Bible? This is a trick question. No, it's not. Male and female. Right, that's not gender. That's biological reality. Gender is made up. When you make it up, you can confuse it and you can make it into whatever you want to. God made man and he made woman. They're biological realities. There is no in between, no maybe this, maybe that. You see, we can confuse things and we can make things into what we want it to be. But when we understand truth, where do we find truth? The Bible, God's Word. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. He also said, you shall know what? The truth, and the truth will set you free. So, what is it that we really want? What is it that really is going to make you happy? I'm going to ask another question. There's a couple of questions here. Don't answer these out loud, but I want you to think and ask yourself these questions. What are you in love with? Fast cars, nice trucks, best shooting gun? What is your first love? In other words, what is it that you really love? And think about that for a moment, because it's important that we understand the importance of what we love. Love requires sacrifice. It goes hand in hand with it. God showed us that in real time by giving us his Son, who died on the cross for us. We see that in relationships, that there are times when we might want to go to this restaurant, but she wants to go to that restaurant. So, okay, well, let's go to that restaurant then. That sounds good. I think that'll be good. I'm not lying. I'm just compromising and sacrificing and giving what she wants, right? The reality is most of the time is, I don't know, I don't care. What do you want? Yeah, until you say something and then, well, I don't want that. So anyway. What you have to sacrifice depends on what or whom God is asking you to love. What it is that you must sacrifice, whatever it is that God is asking you to sacrifice, depends on who or what it is that he's asking you to love. And we don't always know what that sacrifice is going to be, what he's asking us to let go of. But we can rest assured that when God is asking us to give something up, he has something better in return. I read a story some years back, man and his daughter, and she was young, probably 5, 6 years old, something like that. And he found these, those cheap jewelry, like the pearls, little plastic pearls. Found a set of those, and he bought those for her for her birthday and gave them to her. And she just absolutely loved them. She wore them all the time, and she just wouldn't take anything for them. Well, a couple of years later, she's a little bit older and a little bit more mature. He came into her bedroom, and he said, honey, will you give me your pearls? Oh, no, Dad, I can't give you my pearls. No, I can't give those to you. Okay. And he did this for several days. And finally, one night he went in and he asked her. She had tears in her eyes, but she said, okay, Dad. And so she got the pearls out and handed them to him. He took them and walked out of the room. Came back in a few minutes later with a real nice velvet case and handed it to her and said, I just wanted to see if you were willing to give up what you really loved. And when she opened it, it was a set of real pearls, a beautiful pearl necklace. You see, she had to be willing to give up the cheap imitation in order to get the real thing. sometimes when God is asking us to give something up, we think it's precious and we think it's important and we hold it dear to ourselves. It may just be a cheap imitation of of something better that he has for us. So whenever God is asking us to sacrifice, he's not asking us to sacrifice just for the sake of giving something up. He's asking us to sacrifice with purpose. Maybe he has something better for us. Maybe through that sacrifice, we are able to witness to someone else, and they're able to experience God's love because of our sacrifice. It's not always easy. In fact, sacrifice is not easy. It certainly wasn't easy for Jesus, was it? How about his parents? How about Joseph and Mary? You think it was easy for Joseph? Can you imagine the thoughts that Joseph had? Well, let's step back for a second. Let me ask this question. When did Joseph find out that Mary was pregnant from the angel? That's a true-false question. He already knew. Doesn't really tell us how he knew. We just know that he knew because he was contemplating giving her away, putting her away. The King James uses the term privily, quietly. In other words, he was going to divorce her quietly, separate from her, so to try to minimize the retribution and impact. Because at that time, you know, this could probably solve a lot of problems today if we went back to this. Stoning was the penalty for that. But anyway, so Joseph is thinking, I really love Mary, and I can't believe she did this, and I just don't know what to do. And as he's thinking this, then the angel comes to him and says, Joseph, what has happened is of God. The child that Mary is carrying was conceived by the Holy Spirit. She was not unfaithful to you, in other words. This is what the angel is saying. She was not unfaithful to you. This is something miraculous that's being done. And so I want you to go ahead and marry Mary. But don't sleep with her until after the baby is born. Do you think that was easy for Joseph to do? I think that was one of the hardest decisions he ever had to make. What about Mary when the angel came to her and said, hey, Mary, you're going to get pregnant. Now, remember what I just said. The penalty is for this. So she knows what the possibility is. And yet, what does she do? May it be as you say. She surrendered. She was willing to sacrifice. She was willing to do what she was being asked to do. I think Joseph did what he did because he truly loved her. And that was evident in the fact that he was going to quietly put her away so that the least amount of harm would come to her. And so when the angel came to him and said, this is what the deal is, in some ways I think Joseph was relieved that, oh wow, she is faithful to me, so yeah, I do love her and I want to be with her. But there was those possibilities, people talking and, you know, Reputation, yeah. Have you ever been the recipient or the topic of gossip and innuendo? Felt good, didn't it? It's not fun. But marrying Mary was what God was asking Joseph to do. And I think there was sacrifice there on Joseph's part, certainly on Mary's part. But they were willing to do what God wanted them to do. And so Joseph chose love, and he married Mary. Remember, I said it earlier, love is a choice. We choose to love. The Hallmark movies have all these romance fantasies, I guess is a good way to put it. In fact, they had one the other day that was, the author was a romantic, fantasy romance author or something like that. Anyway, everybody wants to be loved. We all want to experience love. And it is possible. We can be loved. We will be loved. But love is reciprocal. Do you understand what I mean? Love goes both ways. If love is one-sided, if it's only one person doing the loving and the other one is doing all the receiving and the taking, what's going to end up happening? It's not going to work. There is no relationship, because a relationship requires coming together. It requires sacrifice on both sides. Tonight, we may go to that instead of this, but then tomorrow night, we're going to go to this instead of that. Right? We're going to compromise. We're going to work together on this. And that's what makes marriage work. That's what makes relationships work. God's design for marriage was always one of mutual sacrifice. And the reason is because marriage is a picture of the relationship that we have with God. That's what Paul tells us in the book of Ephesians. Marriage is that picture, that relationship. And we find that, we go all the way back to the book of Genesis, to the very beginning. And that's what we see. Because I think even the story of creation, Genesis chapter 1 is the story of creation, right? It's the Cliff Notes version. It gives the high-level look at how everything was created. And man was created by God. That's what it says in Genesis chapter 1. When you go to Genesis chapter 2, we take that little section of chapter 1 right there, and we pull that out, and we say, okay, let's give a little bit more detail of this part, because this part is really important. And so in Genesis chapter 2, we find God taking the dust of the earth and forming it and breathing life into it and creating man, Adam. Now, an interesting thing takes place next. What happens next? All the animals. God brings all the animals by, and Adam names all the animals. I believe that God brought them in pairs. The male and the female. And as they came through, at the end of it, after he had done all that, the statement is made, And Adam realized there was not a suitable mate for him among the animals. So God performed the first surgery. He caused a deep sleep to come over Adam, took a rib from his side, and from that rib he made Eve. And so when Adam woke up, he was not still under the effects of anesthesia the way we are these days. That was perfect anesthesia. When he was awake, and he looked and he said, "Wow, man, look at what God gave me." So he called her woman. You see, what God was doing there was emphasizing to Adam that Eve was his partner. And it tells us then that for this reason a man shall leave his mother and father and cleave to his wife. Now, that term cleave, the Hebrew term carries the idea of glue, sticking to. There's another, it's not quite so clear there, but there's another concept, a little kind of imagery that's there too. Cleave also means to separate. And that's that picture, that you're separating from and gluing yourself to. You can't be with her and with them at the same time. There has to be a separation and a surrender. In the spiritual picture here, what we find is the same thing. God is telling us the same thing. We must separate ourselves from our parents, from the world, if you will, and give ourselves completely and cleave to and glue ourselves to God. That's the picture that's painted there. And then that relationship that we have continues like the marital relationship, that there's give and take, and we recognize what we are to do, and that sometimes we have to surrender. So when God is asking us to give, it's not to hurt, but it's to grow us, to strengthen us. And more importantly, it's to help develop that relationship with Him, to make it a stronger relationship. Do we really love God? Then are we willing to surrender whatever He asks us to give, to sacrifice whatever He asks us to give? Are we willing to be committed to Him no matter the cost? That's all that He's asking for. And when we are committed to Him, then we have the promise that He's committed to us as well. Comments? Questions? All right. All hearts and minds are free. Let's stand. Bobby, would you dismiss us, please?